To make her stop suffering.
Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back to the 4-Digit Mania World Cup 2024. The teams have had a full week to prepare, and we have nothing better to do this weekend than to start off the semifinals weekend. And oh boy, what a match do we have in store for you guys here. A 9 versus 10 showdown. We've got Canada taking on Indonesia for a right to the second half of semifinals weekend. As always, my name is Sparky, and I'm joined in the commentary booth by none other than Dynascape. Dyna, how you doing?
I am doing great, Sparky. As you know, we are in the semifinals now, so that means pretty much every match that's going on, each of the teams, at least their seedings are within striking distance of each other. Every single match this weekend is basically guaranteed to be a banger, and this one is no different. Canada versus Indonesia, seed 9, seed 10, duking it out for a chance at still living on in the loser's bracket. And this should be a very, very interesting one. Again, I kind of see that LN Rice battle happening for this match, but I don't know. What do you think, Sparky?
I could see it going either way. I feel like this might be the start of where we see a couple of these countries start to reach the upper limits of what they're comfortable with as a team, because all these countries still have fantastic individual players that can definitely swing performances on this map pool. But we're starting to see, as I think it was starting to make its appearance in the quarterfinals towards the tail end of it, as we started to really weed out the last of the semifinalists in the lower bracket, that finding that third person to round out your composition, whether it be on the right side of the pool, whether it be on the LN side of the pool. It's definitely proving to be a bit of a pain point for some of these countries. And instead of turning this into an LN versus rights dichotomy type of discussion, it's more which of these countries, which between these two countries is going to have the team composition to get them through some of those critical points during this match.
Yeah, 100%. I love that you brought that up so much because it was kind of like the talk of the town last week, where you and I both like to say that some teams kind of sometimes have that third man syndrome, where they just struggle to find a third player who can really cleanly either FC it or get a good accuracy, and maybe that's the reason why they sometimes lose to a team that is just more consistent, right? So definitely something to watch out for, and especially with middle seeds like Canada and Indonesia. Is that going to be a problem this weekend, especially with that, again, another difficulty increase, and quite a large one in some of these categories? Something to keep your eye out for in this match. You know, that third player, that player that scores the least, we're always going to have to see what happens, and maybe that'll change people's game plans once they realize that, hey, maybe, you know, some of these team scores that we have and that we were confident on is not up to snuff.
Yeah, for sure. This could be a real wake-up call for some of the teams remaining, especially in that lower bracket. I think that's going to be where we're going to see some of the more interesting developments as we make our way through this weekend. The winners bracket, it could go either way. Those teams kind of have shown already, because of the fact that they're still in that winners bracket, that they have at least covered up some of the weaknesses, or they're not as glaring. They still exist because no team is perfect, but they're able to compromise and pick up either a scrappy break point to kind of put that on the back burner, or make sure that they don't have to worry about having to play through their weaknesses or finding that third person to round out a composition when they already have something in the back pocket to work with, because of the fact that they're able to at least go toe-to-toe with the opponent. So this should give us a bit of a glance as to what we can expect. I feel like this being a 9 versus 10 showdown, you can't really get any closer, on purpose at least, than this matchup. So I will see. I mean, both these countries have proven in the past that they can put up some pretty marvelous performances. So maybe quarterfinals was a bit of an outlier. Maybe the pool wasn't conducive to what they wanted to go into, and maybe, who knows, with the difficulty increase, you start to bring in those more physical players back into the fold. You don't have to worry about accuracy as much. It's still important, but you're not going to get sniped by somebody that can swing a double-digit performance on literally everything.
Yeah, agreed. It's definitely going to be tough to find people like that nowadays in these kinds of pools. Category for me to look at, like the standout category, would probably be SV for this match. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we know that Canada is pretty good at SV. I think they seeded 5th. They have Hall the Wise, Commando Black, and Twitch Chat, I believe, usually for the SVs, and I think the others can even support if needed, and they've put up some pretty good SV scores throughout the bracket stage. However, last week, Indonesia just absolutely blew everyone else out of the water, especially on SV2, top scored over there by, I think, an amazing amount, something like 15,000 points over the second place team score, as well as beating Canada on SV1 just in general. So is Canada gonna want to still go for SV, even though we know they're a good team? Is it maybe a trap for them later on? Do you think we're gonna see anything in the protects or bans early on, or maybe for the second bans later?
Oh, that's actually a really interesting point. The fact that if you kind of rely on the SVs as your bread and butter to try and break away from the traditional map pool. What do you do when you go up against a country that can potentially beat you at them? I mean, they've kind of pigeonholed themselves into a position where they kind of have to go into them. You live by the sword, you die by the sword in that sort of situation, because we saw in the match last week with Canada that in the early game they were fantastic on LN, and for whatever reason they just couldn't put together an LN performance to go to basically keep themselves afloat. So if Indonesia can answer the LNs in this match, then they might have to basically bite the bullet and go into those SVs. So it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an SV ban to maybe ensure that the SV that they're most comfortable on survives.
Yeah, I think it's really tough to say. Again, I'm kind of looking at Indonesia to want to maybe be proactive and protect into SV.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that it'll maybe warrant a response for Canada to ban the other one? Maybe not so much. However, it's kind of tough again with this pool structure. When you have 5 rice, 5 LNs, and then 4 hybrids, the team in general that really enjoys rice and finds their points there definitely want to find points somewhere else, because that wears out very thin, very fast. And of course, with a ban in place, if your other team doesn't, like, they know that you do enjoy rice and you can probably do better than them on rice, suddenly you're down to 4 and you have to find something like hybrid 1 with Agin Wida in this pool or something else. A lot of these hybrids, I think, in this pool maybe are a little bit biased towards LNs. So it's very tough, and I think Indonesia does kind of need to be proactive about that. And as for Canada, I mean, from what I've seen, yeah, they didn't do so well last week on LNs, but I think looking at the scores and comparing both teams, I believe Indonesia did a little bit worse overall. So it might be kind of like the lesser of two evils kind of thing, where Canada just has to go into LN, even though maybe that's not their strongest suit. Just have to see.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, like I mentioned, like early game Canadian LN performances were outstanding. Like the team scores they were putting up on the earlier round LNs were fantastic. I think maybe to their credit, maybe just might have run up against a bit of a brick wall. It's one of those where, what do you do when your opponent can answer you on your preferred skill set? Because they were kind of getting picked apart on the rice picks last week. So, I mean, who knows? This, in the context of this match, it could be a better matchup for them, player per player, and they could basically run the floor against Indonesia. On the other hand, it could be on the other side where Indonesia is able to answer everything that that's brought in front of them, and we just have a bit of a one-sided affair one way or the other. Or we go to tiebreaker and we just handshake, we just win our picks, no break points. This is a friendly match, and we'll just settle it like grown adults.
Yep, just go straight into the tiebreaker. And honestly, for Canada, it is very hard when you are facing Malaysia last week.
Yeah.
Totally get, why they maybe shied away from LN there. Makes sense. But honestly, when you have people like Commando Black really stepping it up, I mean, we basically did not see Commando Black for the entirety of the early bracket stages.
Yeah, they were just
now
in for
suddenly
SV.
they were just in for SV, and now suddenly, like, look at them. They're doing so well on Rice. I think they play a lot of the LNs as well. It just become a mainstay, and it's really interesting to see how a lot of these teams have transitioned some of their early game players and took them out in favor for their late game players. So like one of them being Commando Black, or maybe like Z2A on the US, if I had to put a parallel.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think we touched on it briefly before. It's like, as the pools get harder, you start to bring more players into the fold. Like on the one hand, yes, we do lose those more quote unquote accuracy oriented players, the ones that can snipe those good performances on early game pools, but fall off when things get more physical. On the other hand, you have that case where players that are more comfortable playing these physical picks, these long, arduous, like high key per minute songs, that's just where their comfort is, and they somehow managed to grind out these scores. So now that we're done with both of the warm-ups, we can get into the actual proceedings. Dice are going to be rolled. We're going to get the protects, we're going to get the bans, we're going to get that first pick. And if you are just joining us for the first time, first of all, welcome. Second of all, this is a loser's bracket match. It is a best of 11. First team to 6 points will be moving on to the second half of semifinals weekend. Loser will be eliminated.
So it's for all of the marbles here, and with Canada winning the role, they are going to get first protect as well as the first big pick, and that's going to be very important to them. They're going to go for LN3. So that's going to be Giant Steps, the more techie release. We saw it in OML, and a lot of players struggled with, just hacking it in general. It's so hard to tech, and I think a very high OD as well. So it seems like Canada is going to shoot for some of these LN maps.
Yeah, sticking to what they've really carved out for themselves. So kind of putting away the discussion we had about the SV picks, might just leave those open for later on down the line. Like you did mention, we do have the second ban in effect once we get into the mid-match portion of this, so could see some adaptation. Right now we are waiting on Indonesia's protect, and based on performances from last week, maybe a Rice protect, whichever one they're most comfortable with, might be worth keeping around just to ensure that Canada can't get rid of it. So we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that Rice kind of guess, because they did really well on a lot of the maps. They are going to go for Rice 2 Mama, which is more jump stream centric. And again, I mean, Indonesia, they got first place out of all of the teams on Rice 3, which was one of none last week. Second place on Mintango, Rice 5. They got third place on Dose, which was Rice 1. So just all around, most of the maps they played on the Rice pool last week, they were top scoring. And very good scores as well. I think averaging pretty much 990s from all three of their Rice players. So a force to be reckoned with. You're going to have to see how they hold up against these speedier picks.
Yeah, for sure. And while we're discussing that, Indonesia removing LN2 from the pool. So I guess understanding the game plan for Canada, wanting to make sure that they pinch as much of that pool as possible, probably getting rid of the map that gave them the most pain in practice outside of maybe Giant Steps because it was protected, and Canada answering back with Rice 5.
Yeah, so one of the more physical picks in the Rice pool is going to be taken out, so a bit of an inkling as to whether or not Canada is really up to playing some of these faster picks. Probably not feeling it as well, and Indonesia banning LN2 is quite interesting because that's kind of a more coordination biased pick in terms of the LN categories. So I would have thought that maybe they would go for Saren, which was LN5, but maybe they do prefer their shields.
Yeah, potentially. That or keeping it around for some stray misses from the opponent. I always like to say is like the reason I like to try and justify leaving things around, and it's usually because it's like, well, I can kind of play it. I'm hoping that you make a mistake on it. And as we make our way through this, first pick goes to Canada, and it is going to be LN1. So Fort Alice going to be the first map of this match, first map of the weekend as well.
Yeah, Canada going for yet another, I guess not as physical of a LN pick. They did protect Giant Steps, and I did say it was techie, but to be fair, it's not as physical. I think Fort Alice is kind of in the same way, where those two maps are the least physically demanding LNs, or maybe physically demanding maps in this entire pool. This is more of a wild card pick. So again, if Canada is able to win this, they should be feeling pretty confident into branching out into other maps in the LN pool. Of course, there is good representation of any kind of LN patterns in this map. So it's a good litmus test for the first map.
Yeah, for sure. Now we're getting the rosters in. I think for Canada has been pretty clear cut since the beginning. It's going to be HoloWise, Robert 6400, and the entirety of Twitch chat for them. And Indonesia, we're waiting to see who their third player is going to be. We got Nayu and Aishuga in at the moment. Gonna see who their third player.
Yeah, tough to say. I think Indonesia is one of those teams that can really rotate around a lot of their players. I know Rakanovan's used a lot. I know Wish Knight, Dinar, Rayhead, just all other players that we don't see on the Indonesia team have seen a lot of other maps throughout various parts of the bracket stage, and Wish Knight is going to be their last player.
Alright, so maybe just trying to get loaded in. Needed a couple extra seconds to get in here. And looks like we have our 6 players, so right now just waiting on everybody to ready up and get underway with this first map of this best of 11.
This is going to be a really good tone setter. It's so important that Canada does not drop a breakpoint to Indonesia, especially on a map like this, because you do not want Indonesia to know, like, you do not want to show any weakness to this team at all.
Yeah, you can't let them know that you can encroach on, or that they can encroach on your preferred map style. So as we get this underway, pretty strong starts. A couple of players picking up a couple straight 200s through that opening burst. Should start to settle down as we get further along into this introduction. Start to see a couple of 99.7s, a couple of middling 99.5s. Still really good, but I think the bar has been set throughout this tournament that you want to be in and around that 0.7 bar to really give your team a bit of an edge. And right now it's Indonesia pulling ahead by a couple of hundreds of points. This is still incredibly close going into the second quarter of the map.
Super interesting pattern going on here. Oh, HoloWise is going to take a drop. HoloWise was the top scorer in the lobby, and we had Twitch chat kind of battling it out with, I guess, Ice Saga or Wish Tonight. And Robert being in last place didn't really help Canada, especially with HoloWise dropping. Indonesia's going to take this early lead, and they're going to run away with it. About 9,000 points, and it's definitely helped that with the fact that I think Indonesia just overall has the better accuracy at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. We see Robert finding the next drop for the Canadians, not answered back once again by the Indonesians as we get into this bit of a break section. And as we take stock of the situation, 17,000 points now in favor of Indonesia on Canada's first pick. All 3 of them holding on to this really balanced team score overall at the moment, all within about a 10% of each other. And Twitch chat falls as well on the build-up going into the last third. So that's all 3 FCs down for Canada. And as it stands, they're going to need Indonesia to start finding some breaks here in this ending to hope to try and claw back some of this deficit. There's the first one. Aishuga goes down, but they're going to need a lot more than that to start shrinking this lead further and further. It's still 25,000 points in favor of the blue side.
Definitely a start, and it's so hard when you are with no FCs left on the board for your team and you're facing Indonesia who has 2 FCs and 1 person with really good act despite a miss. We have Isaga that has missed but still beats out the act of any other player on the Canadian side, and as this map closes out, 25,000 points is way too big an obstacle to overcome for Canada. Wish Knight is going to drop, but Nayu is going to keep the only FC in the lobby, and Indonesia is rewarded with a break point.
Yeah, overall, really good, clean run overall from Indonesia. Unfortunate to lose those 2 FCs, but still able to come away with the point. Canada, not too bad themselves. HoloWise Twitch chat pulling that 980. It's just unfortunate that they found some of those breaks, but I think the accuracy was firmly on the side of Indonesia there. So not the strongest of starts for the Canadians, but it's still very early on. Can definitely recover from this as we move further along in this match.
It is pretty scary to see a bit of an accuracy differential at the moment. I mean, Wise and Twitch Chat did pretty well to keep up with some of the Indonesian players. However, just Nayu having that FC and Vision Knight and Isaga matching the other two is just really tough, especially when Robert was struggling just a little bit with kind of like the coordination aspects, or dropping a lot of 200s in the release sections as well. So I mean, Indonesia is going to go up 1-0, and with the next pick they are going to try to double it. Canada has some time to think about what they want to go into next.
Yeah, meanwhile, while they deliberate, Indonesia up to pick first. With that breakpoint in hand, do you go for something a little bit risky here? You do have a little bit of leeway now to perhaps venture away from what you were originally planning. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe the first pick would have been something in that rice category, but now both SVs are still open. You know you had the better overall team scores last weekend than your opponents. Maybe best get one of them out of the way early and leave yourself the entirety of the rice pool available, because if you do capitalize and you do double up on that point, then you can just go straight rice the rest of the match and find your other 4 points there.
Yeah, so I mean, it's looking pretty scary for Canada. Again, you do not want to drop that first break point. Yeah, it is a first to 6 best of 11, but even then, you still don't really have a lot of leeway in your picks. You really do have to make sure that everything's right. And Indonesia is actually going to go for Hybrid 1 first.
Interesting. Okay, this is another maybe variation on what they might have originally wanted to go for, and I can see it. A lot of the rounds prior, teams have been referring to Hybrid 1 as a pseudo Rice 6 because of how the hybrid pools are structured. So instead of committing fully to one of the rice picks, they're going for one of these hybrids, keeping their options open. They still have basically the rest of the pool to work with if this doesn't work out in their favor, and they don't burn one of their potential preferred picks by going for this.
Yeah, I do really like that line of thinking. Maybe Indonesia was assuming the same, and again, Waida is very, I guess, interesting as a hybrid pick. Yeah, it's kind of like the other hybrid ones of the past pools where it's mostly rice difficulty, and funnily enough, a lot of the LN difficulty is like LN long jacks. So it's a bit scary as well, because if you mess up once, especially during those LN long jack sections, it might be just game over for you. So you really have to make sure that you don't kind of combo break or like combo rush any of these trickier sections.
For sure, and as we were discussing that substitution for Indonesia, Isaga subbing out for Rakanovan. Gonna be interesting to see how they perform on this. And meanwhile, hot starts for everybody, much cleaner than LN1. Maybe everybody's settling down a little bit, getting into the groove of the match. We get into the first big build up into the drop.
Nothing too crazy just yet. We do see the slightest of leads maybe for Indonesia, but they're kind of jiggling back and forth. We've got Wise struggling just a little bit at a 99.3. That is matched by Rakanovan. However, I mean, just look at Wish. 99.82 has been such a stellar performer on the rice maps throughout the entirety of the section. It's going to take a couple of 200s, but that's nothing doing. Honestly, all of the players kind of have their own counterparts in this match.
Yeah, for sure. Hollow keeping Rakanovan in check, Wish D9 keeping Twitch Chat in check, and Nayu keeping Robert in check. Actually, flip that around. Wish D9 Robert, Nayu Hollow the Wise, getting them all confused as we continue along here, and Canada's still keeping this close. Inside of 1,000 points, starting to trickle this lead back over in their favor. A couple of 200s coming out from the Indonesian players. Nobody's found a drop yet, which is very important, but we're already halfway through the chart, and we have a couple of players slipping here from Indonesia in the mid 99% range. Robert now needing to keep Wish Knight in check, can't let them run away too much, but I think that's the bulk of the lead right now, the fact that they're about 2/10 ahead of everybody on Canada bar Robert, and this isn't a safe lead. As we make our way into the last quarter of the chart, the next major build-up, we're going to see a bit of a reprise of the earlier sections. Things are going to start to fly off the rails, and as we continue on, it's Hollow the Wise finding the first drop, and that's the opening Indonesia needed to start building a bit of a cushion back up. It was looking really dicey there through the first 3 quarters, but now it has opened up to about a 6,000 point lead as they start to run away with this a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that no one really had any struggles with the LN Lonjacks, but as we got into that transition, that segue into this last portion, it did bump up a bit in physicality, and unfortunately, Hollow the Wise is the only one to fall. Indonesia is gonna take this next point. They are gonna make it 2-0, and just a commanding lead overall. What a good start from them to begin this match.
Yeah, it took a little bit to get going there, but honestly, just being able to avoid the drops on those transitions, very important. Outside of that, just one tiny blip, one mistake completely blew that map wide open. And now Indonesia 2 to the good, as Canada are up to pick once again. And I feel like we're going to touch on this throughout this entire match. The SVs are right there.
They're sitting there. They're looking pretty.
They really are. I mean, untouched. Like, it's really rare when you get both of them through a pick and ban phase.
It's so scary too. I mean, sometimes it's just kind of like that gentleman's agreement.
Yeah.
And I mean,
agree to just ignore them. We shadow ban them, like over on Twitter. Just for you posted bad word. We can't see any of your interactions now. Sorry.
But it's more like bad pattern. Where at least a lot of the players are thinking that for the SV maps, right?
These gimmicks do not pass the vibe check.
They really don't. I mean, have you seen SV2?
No, I like blind reacting to these because
that one doesn't pass the vibe check for me.
The things that the SV team cook up are diabolical, to put it nicely. And as we get further and further along, it boggles my mind the fact that anybody can learn these maps inside of a week. Yeah. And we can put all that aside because Canada doesn't want to go into the SVs just yet. They're going to stick to what they know. LN5 going to be the pick here. It's going to be Saren.
So Saren, probably the most, I guess, physical, maybe like agreed upon as the hardest LN of the pool, I think, is what a lot of people would say. And maybe this is Canada's chance to make something happen because, I mean, this is kind of the decider in my mind. If Canada cannot win this point, it might be deuces for them for this match because I don't know what they can go to next. Lost on probably one of the easier LNs, and if they can't convert this one, it's just so hard to find another map that matches your playstyle that can really stand up to Indonesia's LN squad.
Yeah, for sure. Might need to start looking towards those hybrids, maybe hybrid 2 and 3, and then 4 if absolutely needed. But then once, similar to how hybrid 1's seen as Rice 6, he will kind of see hybrid 4 as LN6. So maybe they can definitely cobble together some points, but this is arguably one of the first junctions we'll see in this match. This has to be locked down or just gotta be willing to fight back if things start to kind of go sideways to get this point. And we see the island rosters come back up. Isaga, Nayu, Wishty Knight, Hollow Knight, Robert, and Twitch chat going at it once again. Can Canada correct the mistakes from LN1 on LN5 and notch their first point on the board here?
bit of an accuracy lead at the start from Indonesia, but to be fair, this one is like a map where I would say accuracy isn't the big crux of the map. You have to not miss, and look at Robert. That 6400 stands for how many misses they're gonna get on this map.
Yeah, just falling out here, but unsure what happened there. I don't know if maybe something disconnected or what, but gonna have to wait and see what the judgment call is here. I think we're gonna get an abort. It was inside the first quarter.
Yeah,
And with this map being 2 minutes, yeah, it was in time. So it was because of the fact that it's a 2-minute map, they were inside the first quarter. That's inside the first 30 seconds. So gonna get a bit of a mulligan here. Can't rely on those too much, but I mean, these things happen. That's why we have that rule in place.
Yeah,
in the nick of time, and who knows, maybe it gives Indonesia a chance to adjust their settings. Nayu right there forgot to turn off their mirror, so who knows, maybe a blessing in disguise. Could have gone way worse for everybody involved.
Oh yeah, for sure. And thankfully, I mean, it seems like Robert's game tapped out, and really you're playing with fire. Maybe the keybinds are alt and tab. Interesting. Interesting.
Hey,
way.
at least it's not escape.
Yeah, at least it's not alt F4. I think Nayu is gonna fix their mirror possibly, but I said we're gonna get a rerun of this map. Everyone just, you know, a bit of a nerve tester.
Yeah, just are you actually locked in? This will be the true test. And like I said, bit of a mulligan, kind of a breath of fresh air. Just get everybody like, hey, okay, we were joking, we were having fun. Now it's time. Let's get serious.
Yeah, hit that mental reset button. Best thing you can do. I mean, you just have to get into that mindset as quickly as possible and not really let any external factors like, you know, an aborted map shake you at all. So I think we are all good to go. All 6 players in the chat, as well as the start command coming out. And like we saw, I mean, in Seiren, Indonesia kind of got that early accuracy lead, but it really depends on the misses in this map.
Yeah, it really does start to rain down pretty heavily in terms of what you're being asked to do. And we'll see if everybody can keep it clean. It's going to come down to that miss column at the end of the day. And for right now, pretty similar starts to before. Aishuga finding a bit of an accuracy drop down into that low 99% range, maybe a couple of early releases as they try and make their way through some of the denser sections. Nayu actually finding the first drop here, but still Indonesia hold on to the lead by virtue of the fact that they had an accuracy advantage, but not the FC advantage, as Wishy Knight and Hollowwise start to trade here. And we're going to have a bit of a back and forth now going into the second quarter of this chart.
Not a lot of FCs left on the board. You've got Saga, you've got Twitch Chat, you've got Robert, but really only Saga and Twitch Chat have those high FC accuracies, and Nayu is absolutely destroying it right now. 99.7, even with the miss, is sensational, and that's why Indonesia has about a 7,000 point lead. We are getting into these slower LN jacks, you know, some more coordination sections, but honestly, it is a bit of a slower section, and actually Nayu dropping again, so a bit of that lead shrunken down. Canada still has a lot to make up for it, and Hollowwise is going to take yet another break.
Oh, it's like these windows are cracking open just ever so slightly, but it's too cold in Canada right now. They just keep closing them so they can keep the heat in, and it's not letting them claw back some of this advantage. There's still a third of the chart left to go. Anything can still happen, but with another drop from Hollowwise, it's going to increase this lead for Indonesia going into this outro. A quarter of the map still left to go. 25,000 points in favor of the blue side, as Robert and Twitch Chat trying to do everything in their power to keep this as close as possible, keep it within striking distance. Isaga finding a couple of drops here, a couple of chain misses, traded back by Hollowwise. Again, opening, presenting themselves, and Twitch Chat falls as well.
So now Robert, the only FC left in this map, and with a pretty low accuracy to be actually the lowest accuracy in the lobby, so Unfortunately, that is not going to help as much as Canada would have liked, and 40,000 points sliding over to Indonesia with a great team score. No FCs on the right side, however, Ice Saga Wish Knight, now you really pulled things together to get at least all over 970s, and that's going to be the difference maker, and that's why Indonesia is going to lock in this third point.
Yeah, now a reprieve for Canada. They do get their second ban. Gonna wait to see what it is. Indonesia haven't really tipped their hand on that rice pool, going with hybrid 1 for their first pick. But seeing as they did protect rice 2, wouldn't be surprised if we just saw this rice pool get pinched a little bit here.
Yeah, just the smallest of, cutting down that you can do in the pool. I mean, Canada has a couple of good options. I think they already struck out their best one, which was Wolves standing towards enemies, which is the most like Mama. Maybe meant to be slash Magic Crash Ice could be good choices. Honestly, anything really goes. I think Rice 1, 3, and 4 are decently close enough in categorization where it's really just whatever Canada feels the least confident.
Yeah, for sure. They do get a couple minutes to decide what they want to do here. I mean, they protected LM3. I doubt they'd want to close out their own options here. Something like LM4. I feel like that'd be a little interesting. But no, it's going to be Rice 3, so Magic Crash going to be removed from this pool.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, that song is very crazy. I mean, the chart is very crazy too. And Indonesia is not happy with that. Oh, but wait a minute. Possibly a mispick from them. I think they did want to go for Rice instead.
Okay, so it was a typo. Rice 4 is going to be the ban here. Maybe, I mean, with the pool being as big as it is, sometimes miscategorizing a pick or just mislabeling a pick can definitely happen. So, not the worst thing in the world. Not going to affect things too much. And who knows, maybe Indonesia's happy about that. They did have a pretty exclamatory reaction to seeing Rice 3 get removed, albeit briefly.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if they went into that now. That's the punchline here.
That would be a very good one. It is Indonesia up to pick. They've got Rice 1, 2, and 3 if they'd like. They did take a decently convincing win on Hybrid 1, but to be fair, also took 2 break points of LN against Canada. So, hard pick. They are like
they are going to get Rice 3. It's like, thank you. We appreciate that. We're going to pick it now. Thanks.
Oh, man.
Yeah, with the names of the songs changing every week, putting the label also helps because we have to read through the ref sheet, and man, some of these artist names are long.
Yeah, like this one right here. You've got Maimusi, Shaka Booz, and Hunky Hige Hank.
Very. And equally interesting lineups for both these countries as well. We see Rakanovan check back in for Indonesia. Ice Tiger stepping in for Canada. A bit of a mix. We saw Commando Black step in for the Rice picks last weekend. Maybe Ice Tiger wasn't available, or maybe this is finally a physicality level that they can really shine on. So we're gonna wait and see. We're gonna wait for everybody to ready up. Gonna get into this 4th map of this best of 11. Indonesia currently 3 to the good, going into this first Rice map of this match.
And I like that you mentioned Ice Tiger because we have not seen them too much. I'll be watching them during the entirety of this map. See what they can do, maybe pick at some of these Indonesian players. And I mean, they've proved themselves to be very, very good on Rice, not only last week, but just in general, as well as on HB1 for this match. So, Wish Knight, Nayu, Rakanovan holding that title of kind of the really good rice players on the Indonesian side of things for most of these maps for this week and last week. Canada gonna have to see what they do against them. And talking about this pick, Magic Crash Ice, it's a crazy one. Not only just in the song, but rather in the patterning too. Just so many little flams, crazy mini jacks. It's super speedy as well.
Yeah, already you can see those aforementioned flams making their appearance, a couple of core jacks as well, just transitioning in between, just a real mixed bag through this introduction, but something that a lot of these players are very comfortable with so far. Ice Tiger lagging a little bit further behind. It's hard jumping into a match halfway through because you really want to put your best foot forward. But right now, in that low 99% range, has some time to pick up the accuracy. But right now, that's accounting for a bulk, if not all, of this Indonesian lead right now, to the tune of about 8,000 points. And there's the first drop for the Canadians. Robert falling as well. It's going to help balloon this lead now. Bit out of control. Nayu does trade one back, but it's still 20,000 points to the good for Indonesia going into the second quarter.
And not only that, there's the accuracy difference too. Ice Tiger looked a bit shaky at the start, seemed like they had cold feet, and unfortunately their woes will continue to grow. Nayu's going to take yet another drop, and 2 misses on Nayu's side doesn't mean much. Indonesia's lead is still growing, and Wish Knight and Raknovan are really making it happen.
Yeah, will balance tandem there in the bottom of Indonesia's side of the lobby. 99.7s for both of them. Twitch Chat trying to hold down the fort for the Canadians at the moment, but with Robert and Ice Tiger falling a little bit behind, with Robert finding a next drop here, not answered back this time by the Indonesians, gonna make things go from bad to worse for them as they approach the last quarter of this chart, and right now, there's really just not much they can do. They're going to need to hope for some misses here in this last quarter, some misreads, just something to go their way. And Twitch Chat falls. Robert as well. Another combo reset for the Canadians as Indonesia just looking comfortable as all ever on this pick so far.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Canada really did their best, but unfortunately, I think this is Indonesia's most dominant win, aside from that really funny hiccup with Robert on Seiren. Yeah, I mean, 60,000 points is no joke at all. Canada had the entirety of Twitch Chat on their side, but Indonesia really does have a Wish Knight, and that's to sweep Canada. They're gonna take this map, they're gonna go up 4-0.
Yeah, just overall a very comfortable performance. And it was like we were alluding to at the start of this match. It's like we're going to see countries entering this weekend reaching their overall team ceiling. And there's going to be moments like this where just as a team can't hang against opponents, and it's coming to fruition here with Indonesia taking full advantage of their first rice pick here to make it 4-0 with Canada up to pick, and it's going to be giant steps. So still no SVs from the Canadians. Potential last pick coming through in this match. They're going to try and swing it out on what'll probably be the hardest LN pick for a team to swing together in
just some kind of, preference thing. But overall, I totally trust Indonesia's utilization of all six of their members. I think they've shown that they are really good.
So the gloves have officially come off. We are bare knuckle fighting now. This is arguably one of the few maps in this pool I've really wanted to see these two countries throw down on.
Oh yeah. I mean, you said we were fighting now. You had like the slap with the glove, and now they are performing fisticuffs. Is
Yes.
what's going on right now.
Oh, don't tell me Hall of the Wise didn't have the map. Oh, they were bluffing! Don't tell me they were bluffing.
Oh my gosh. No, the bluff just does not pay off for Canada.
Or is it a double bluff? Did they delete the map
it
before
could totally be
started?
that. That would be the craziest plot twist of, I guess, the entirety of this year's 40M. I don't know what the scriptwriters were thinking when they were doing that, but it seems like we're gonna have to see if How the Wise is side reading or
Bluffing.
not. Yeah, if they're double bluffing, if it was a single bluff,
The
how
good
many
thing about-
bluffs is it?
The good thing about SV is that, we'll be able to tell very quickly. So far, looking good. Everybody hanging on to around this 98% range. Commando Black finding the first drop. It was in the first opening 100 notes, so not going to do the most damage, but picking up a lot of bad accuracy, a lot of early hits, maybe just anticipating some of these judgments as they start to get back into the rhythm. Going to have time to rebuild their accuracy, but it is 30,000 points in favor of the Indonesians. Now, normally, we've seen 30,000 points and we think, oh, it's done and dusted. Welcome to SV, where 30,000 points doesn't mean anything. You just need one bad section to completely turn the tide. And now with everybody kind of settling back in, Twitch chat finds the second drop for the Canadians. Not answered back once again by Indonesia. All three of their players above that 400 combo cap. Now is when the damage is going to start being done. 50,000 points in favor of the blue side going into the back half.
Pretty nasty one as well. I think missing either an entire jump or cord, and was, I think, as well their highest accuracy player up until that fateful miss. Indonesia still keeping it clean. Triple FC from them and crazy scores as well. 99.4 from two of them, and Rayhan with a 99.7 looking for that 990. It seems like Hollow the Wise was not side reading it. It seemed like it was a double bluff or however many you want it to be. But it's just not gonna matter in the end. Nayu is gonna take a drop, but that's just not enough. You need just about 40 more, and I mean that was two of them, but that's not 40. Map is gonna close out with this final quad. Indonesia is gonna take it 5-1. They are on match point.
Yeah, overall, very good scores for a map of that difficulty. Rayhan MVP in that lobby pretty convincingly, 4 200s, marring what could have been a 990, and admitting that they were very nervous. It's hard coming in for your first map and being expected to swing the best performance, being able to top the other quote-unquote SV specialist in this lobby, Commando Black. And everybody else pulling their weight. Nayu kind of fell off there a little bit at the end, but they had already built up enough of a cushion that it really didn't amount to anything. Just being able to stay just ahead. And Canada up to pick.
Yeah, Canada kind of getting to choose their fate here. Their backs against the wall. Indonesia's on match point. Where do you go? You've got LN4, you've got a couple of hybrids that are LN leaning. It's so tough to say. You've got SV1.
Yeah, SV1's there. Make it interesting. But no, it's gonna be hybrid 3. Ooh, okay. I was thinking hybrid 4 for Vanta Black Raver, but no, it's gonna be Ichiden coming out here.
Interesting pick for Canada, and possibly their last one of the tournament. They're fighting for their tournament lives here, so super important. And this Alex Dunk map is going to be the decider of a lot of things.
Yeah, we're gonna see Robert check back in for the Canadians, round out what has been basically the mainstay roster. I think they did mention a little bit earlier, Dylan not available for this match, so might have changed the composition around a little bit, but I think this might have been the main crew for what they wanted to go for. And Asaga checking back in for Indonesia. Gonna back up Naya and Wishty Knight. Has been a formidable trio for this match.
Oh yeah, they've been doing great on pretty much every map that's been thrown at them. Maybe save for Giant Steps, but honestly I think that was just a couple of unlucky runs by some of the members of the Indonesian team, paired with Canada getting really good runs.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now just waiting on everybody to ready up. And we'll get into the 7th map of this best of 11. MP-Star Command comes out. Let's see if Canada can continue or build potentially a bit of a hot streak, or if Indonesia can stop that dead in its tracks and close this match out. It's always that last point that's hardest to get in these sorts of situations.
Oh yeah, and Indonesia really wants to get it before Canada can maybe find comfort in other picks. Might be hard, but still very doable for the Canadians. Ichirin, Hybrid 3, pretty cool map. A lot of Gracie Jacks involved. And also you gotta kind of watch out for the speedier sections as well, because they'll hit you very quickly. And with this very calm start, it seems like both teams pretty well attuned to these releases. A lot of staggers involved. A couple of greats going on to Robert's way. However, I think that can be really made up later on in the map.
Yeah, it's better to find the accuracy drops early on than later on, but not the drops themselves. Robert finding the first one of the map is going to give Indonesia a cushion to work with once again. Similar to what we have been seeing throughout this match, bar one map, 13,000 points in their favor going into the second, third, and Wishing Knight does trade it back here, and that's a pretty significant drop. They did have one of the higher accuracies in this lobby, and it brings them back into the clutches of the likes of Twitch Chat, who is holding on to their FC. So there's a score canceled out, finding an air drop going into the back half now. Canada pulling the lead back, but Robert trades it back this time. We're having a bit of a back and forth now beginning to develop as players starting to recover. Two FCs on the side of Canada, one on the side of Indonesia, but the accuracy still in favor of Indonesia, but not the misses. Hollow-Wise and Suga trading once again.
It's so tough. A lot of these players are finding a slew of misses in between, like these speedy transitions going out of LNs and stuff like that. Hollow-Wise actually taking a dirty miss, at least one where you don't want it. This map is closing out, and Canada just has the slightest of leads. It's such a very calm ending until this final speed intro, and that's really where Canada does not want to drop any 200s. They can't afford any, but a couple do happen, and Indonesia is going to swing it in the end. Last couple notes, so calm, but not for Canada. Unfortunately, Indonesia takes this, and Canada is out of the tournament in losers bracket semis week 1.
Oh man, all eyes, or my attention was diverted to Nayu, the highest accuracy in the lobby, the only FC on the side of Indonesia. As those notes rained down, it was their opportunity to just wrestle that lead back from the Canadians at the 11th hour. And as you mentioned, going to be able to successfully take down the Canadians by a score of 6-1.
So GG's to Indonesia and Canada. That was a very good match to watch, and honestly I expected some of the maps to be a bit closer, but Indonesia just really strong arming their way into the LN section a bit unexpectedly from me. So Indonesia gonna be rewarded with moving on into the next stage of semis. They are gonna face the winner of United Kingdom versus Italy. That is seed 11 versus seed 12. So yet again, another close match that's going to happen when that comes to fruition.
Yep, absolutely. But with that being said, that will do it for this block of one match. We're going to take a bit of a lengthy break. And we'll be back at 13 UTC 9 hours from now to really kick off the proceedings here. We got Malaysia taking on Taiwan before we move on to China taking on Brazil in the next little mini block. And it will continue on from there. But Dinah, you got anything else left to add here?
Nothing much, just really excited for these next matches because, again, as we said, these seedings are very close, and some of these teams are just like neck and neck with each other in terms of scoring and in terms of what kind of categories they'd like to play at. So make sure you do not miss a beat, do not miss a match because we've got many more coming up. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.